All right, welcome to the Young Turks. Cenk, Uygur, John Iadarola with you guys. Got a hell of a show for you. We're apparently not going to have a shutdown, we think. We're going to get to that in a second. Is Katy Perry racist? We're going to get to that. Okay, my favorite two stories, I have to confess, and I do tell you this from time to time, are at the very end of the show, okay? Do we have an insect apocalypse? We have got to get to that story because it's both. It sounds a little funny, but it's actually apocalyptic.
Yeah,
and so that it's just about as disastrous as it could be. And then the Burning Man story, I am going to do a usual Cenk Uygur twist on it, and so buckle up for that. It's a hilarious, fascinating story, not that political, except for the fact that we're going to debate whether we should eat the rich. So a twisty twist coming up in the program, nothing but fun / disaster. Okay, and by the way, we have a very special announcement coming up on Thursday, but tomorrow we might tell you what that announcement is. Anyway, look, wow. Thursday is our 17th anniversary on the Young Turks, which is unbelievable. Yes, it's Valentine's Day. Yes, we launched on Valentine's Day. No, we did not choose that. It happened to be the Sirius Satellite Radio launched on that day. That's why it's our anniversary. And we're gonna do a lot of fun things, which I'm gonna tell you about very soon, but not yet. But one of the things I can tell you is we're gonna do a rebroadcast of Hostmates. So that's a special live streaming event. It is members only because that's the great competition that we had internally among the hosts, like the Newlywed Game. Greatly, it appears loved by almost everyone who watched it. So check that out, and of course, tyt.com/join to become a member. And then this just dropped, so I'll be wearing it on Old School tomorrow. I love this shirt at shoptyt.com. It's got me in the right mood for the show. Progressives versus everybody. I could put a Jamie Lannister quote next to it. Anyone who isn't us. You Game of Thrones fans will understand what I meant by that. Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Anyway, shoptyt.com for that. Okay, let's get started. We got a lot of show.
Okay, let's do that. I look forward to also talking about your favorite stories later on. But for those of you in the audience, we got to go through a lot of lame stuff before we get to the good ones, including my entire hour. Okay.
No. There's the battle between. So look, the two things that have me animated in the first hour most are a battle between Trump and AOC on Green New Deal, of course, and the battle between Trump and Ilhan Omar on AIPAC.
Yeah,
can't wait. So we'll get to that in a minute.
Considering those ones, Ayanna Pressley and Rashida Tlaib, watch out, he's coming for you.
Yeah, well,
might be next.
No, they're coming for him.
Oh, okay. Well, let's jump into the news. We might not actually have our second government shutdown of the year, according to bipartisan negotiators in Congress who say that they've got a possible deal. But we're gonna break down both the details of the deal and what different groups think about it. So here's a little bit of what's in it. A Democratic congressional aide told the Daily News that the committee had agreed to do $1.375 billion for the construction of 55 miles of bollard fencing. No wall, said the aide, while reducing the number of detention beds at the disposal of the Immigration and Customs Enforcement Agency by 17.4%, cutting about 8,500 beds out there. So we've got a little bit more details. Those are the initial details. There will be some bollard fencing, not a wall, fencing. So basically it's like, imagine open space and you're walking across it. And then you come to material that stops you from crossing it, but not a wall.
Yes, they went with bollard fencing at the last second. They were considering dotard fencing instead, but a little bit too much of a Kim Jong-un reference, so they went with bollard. I literally don't know what bollard fencing is.
So bollard fencing is the steel slats that are put relatively close to each other. You can see through portions of it, but it is metal for enough that you can't walk through it.
Okay, so they will not be able to squeeze through with their cantaloupe cabs.
No, it's bollard fencing is just a fancy wall. That's all it is, fancy wall.
Yeah, now we're kidding around. That's cantaloupe cabs, a reference to Steve King and his racist diatribes against Latin American immigrants. But look, it looks like a good deal to me, and I don't often say that. Usually these so-called bipartisan deals are disastrous, and I'm usually on the side of saying, no, strike a better deal, or from time to time, it is okay to shut the government down. But in this case, it appears that the Democrats had leverage and actually used it, which is borderline shocking, and that Trump is coming out and the Republicans are coming out in a much worse shape. So you're never gonna get everything you want out of a deal. From what I can tell now, not all the details are in, but it looks like I would take it. He wanted $1.6 billion, or the original deal that Trump rejected had $1.6 billion for some sort of border security, physical barrier of border security. This has less. So he negotiated himself into a worse position than the already bad position that was so bad he rejected it.
Art of the deal.
There you go. Told you, can't negotiate his way out of a paper bag, and doesn't know anything about deal making, and of course bungled this because he's a serial bungler.
I feel a little bit different, but first let's go to the president. He's gonna respond to a very close analysis of this plan, which I'm sure he conducted, and here he is giving his first impression.
Will you sign Congress's border deal?
I have to study it. I'm not happy about it. It's not doing the trick, but I'm adding things to it. And when you add whatever I have to add, it's all gonna happen where we're gonna build a beautiful, big, strong wall that's not gonna let criminals and traffickers and drug dealers and drugs into our country. So I can tell you that, am I happy at first glance? I just got to see it. The answer is no, I'm not. I'm not happy.
Was that before or after Sean Hannity told him not to be happy about it, calling it a garbage compromise?
This would be after. Yeah, what I noticed, I guess I notice this every day, but when he's going through, I'm not happy about it, I have to study it, so he doesn't know the details, but he's not happy with what he sees. And but once I add things, there's gonna be a wall, like that whole weird meandering statement. There's a lot that's been normalized since he's become president, but I still have not gotten used to an idiot like that speaking with the authority of the office of the presidency. Yeah. So we do have that. Now, he doesn't support the plan, but might well end up signing it in the end. The thing from my point of view, and maybe my expectations are too high, I don't know why they agreed to a deal that has any wall in it. I know that they're saying it's not a wall, Sean Hannity's saying it's not a wall, but it feels to me like he kept switching back and forth between I want a wall, I want steel bollard fencing, I want a barrier, I want concrete, I want a wall, I want fencing.
Yeah.
I feel like he is going to use this to declare that he has won, and that Democrats have signed on to the idea that you do need physical barriers at the border.
Now, this is bizarre world where I will now defend Democratic leadership and their compromises.
Okay, maybe I'm crazy.
Yeah, no, you're not crazy. It's a legitimate point of view, and some progressives in Congress might have that point of view, and some people are concerned about that. But look, they do have to compromise at some point and get to a deal because the government has to function. And the question is, how good or bad is that deal? Not whether it exists or doesn't exist. So if the Democrats stuck to no funding for any physical barrier at the border at all, well, we obviously would never have a deal. So then how do you ever resolve that?
Would we not have a deal?
Yeah,
I mean, how
think
much
so.
do the Republicans want to launch back into a shutdown just a few weeks after a shutdown that was absolutely devastating for them?
I know, but at that point, and that was part of the point of this 3-week hiatus to kind of renegotiate, the Republicans would be able to say, hey, we did a reset. It's no longer a Trump shutdown. The Democrats are now saying they're going to give zero when they had offered 1.6 billion before. This is totally unreasonable, and they would then launch that PR campaign. If I was on the Democratic side, I would think that this is a plenty good enough win where we actually got Trump to reduce what he was asking for from the original shutdown, which is a massive loss for Trump. I mean, that makes him look like an idiot. So here's a situation where I mean, this is total bizarre world where I agree with Sean Hannity. If you're a Republican and Donald Trump and you really wanted the wall, this is a garbage compromise for them. They got killed, and that's because Trump doesn't know how to negotiate. He's a total idiot. So look, you got to take it at some point. I think this is a good point to take it, and It's all symbolism anyway. The real wall takes $20 to $70 billion. What difference does it make if it's 0 or 1.3 or 1.6? It ain't getting built. And what difference does it make if it's a dollared wall or a dotted wall or a beaded
wall
or a beaded curtain, as Nancy Pelosi once called it? It's all symbolism. And if we're talking about symbolism and you're not actually building a nonsensical $70 billion wall, I'm okay with it, as long as you got something back, and they did get plenty of things back. And look, the compromise on the beds that and hence the detention facilities that ICE has, I don't love that either. But that's the whole point of a compromise. And look, why was I against so many compromises that the Democrats did for the last 20 years? Because they weren't real compromises. They just give the Republicans 98% of what they wanted. So I hated that, and I fought against it tooth and nail every single day. But if you have an actual compromise where both sides win a little bit, and actually, honestly, our side wins more, that's a compromise I could live with.
Yeah, I guess one prediction I will make, assuming that this goes forward, it gets voted for, passes or whatever, I feel like the Republicans will say that every Democrat that votes for this has voted to build walls. And they will use that the next time around and say, well, how are you guys gonna say that we shouldn't spend $10 billion when you guys did approve $1 billion for a wall?
But I'm gonna use the Ben Mankiewicz rule on that one. Yes, they will say that, and then we get to say whatever we want to say, right? We get to counter them. And so the reality also, and John, you know this, is that the Schumer and the Democrats offered, what was it, 25 billion?
Initially, yeah.
Initially last year, right? And Trump turned that down, because again, total idiot, doesn't know how to negotiate. So you could use that argument if you're a Republican anyway.
Yeah, that's true. Okay, I do want to play one more little bit of video of Trump though, because I think that it could be interpreted either to support what you were saying or my narrative more. So he's gonna be talking about if there is another shutdown, whose responsibility is it? And take a look at the way that he frames that.
I don't think you're going to see a shutdown. I wouldn't want to go to it now. If you did have it, it's a Democrat's fault. And I accepted the first one, and I'm proud of what we've accomplished, because people learned during that shutdown all about the problems coming in from the southern border. I've always accepted it. But this one, I would never accept if it happens, but I don't think it's gonna happen. But this would be totally on the Democrats, okay?
Okay.
So I think that's exactly what I just said.
Yes, that they would try to pin it on the Democrats, but it also is an indication that he really doesn't want it on him, because he just went through this experience of it being on him, his approval rating dragging. And whether, like, I guess I'll flip what you just said to me. Okay, the Republicans will try to claim that it's the Democrats' fault, but okay, they were kind of trying to do that in the second half of the last shutdown.
But the problem is they would have a point here, because we got Trump to reduce the funding for the physical barrier at the border.
But they were saying, before the shutdown was even done, Chuck and Nancy were saying not $1 for a wall. That's what they won the shutdown battle on, was no wall funding.
Yeah. Look, I love it, brother. I mean, I hope that there are more and more progressives on the left of me saying, no, let's fight even harder. That would be awesome. I'm just telling you that the old adage that you saw if you watched Moneyball, the movie, at the end of the movie, you gotta know when you hit a home run. Okay, it's okay, we hit a home run. Let's take our winnings off the table. And finally, I'll end on Donald Trump and whether he'll even accept it. Now, the Republican legislators say that they have been in constant communication with the White House, and that the White House signed off on everything that they negotiated. When they asked Richard Shelby, who's the lead negotiator on the Senate side for the Republicans, so will Trump accept this? He said he couldn't predict what Trump will, quote, do, say, or write. In other words, look, we asked the idiot 7,000 times and he said yes, but that doesn't mean it's a yes. God knows what he'll tweet tomorrow, because he's unpredictable and a child.
Well, and by the way, for Richard Shelby, I don't know if he might be implying this in the tweet, but if he's not, he should be thinking about it. There's every reason to believe that he will accept the deal because he did sign off on everything, but he is going to viciously attack the Republicans who negotiated it. So they're going to work hardcore to save his ass, and they're going to get thrown under the bus.
To which I say, of course, of course they are. That's what he does.
Oh, those idiots.
Yeah.
Okay, why don't we take the first break and come back with Donald Trump's El Paso rally from yesterday?
Oh, yeah. It's a giant rally. It's a big rally. It's a strong rally. Okay, much stronger than Beto's. Oops. We'll get to that when we come back. We hope you're enjoying this free clip from the Young Turks. If you want to get the whole show and more exclusive content while supporting independent media, become a member at tyt.com/join today. In the meantime, enjoy this free segment. All right, back on the Young Turks. You guys, I'm just reading a couple of the comments here, but it seems like there's some sentiment towards John's direction, okay? P. McEnroe on Twitter says, Cenk, we don't need fencing on the border either. I think Democrats should trade not prosecuting Donald Trump for his resignation instead. Well, that is a trade I would take, and I hopefully will get at some point, but that is probably unrelated to this.
They should have brought it up though. You never know what you're gonna get in a negotiation.
Yeah, well, with Trump, you might be right. He's like, okay, fine, I resign. What? What happened? Anyway, Marsden 1991 says this deal is virtually the same deal they made in December. The only change is the bollard fencing. And you could take that in two different ways. I mean, that was the deal that Democrats had already agreed to and had won on. Here, they reduced the amount of money for wall/funding a little bit, and it looks like they have negotiated to actually reduce the ICE detention centers by some amount. So full details will come out later, but so there is a couple of things the Democrats got out of it, which also answers Victor's question in the members' comments section. All right, I want to tell you guys about a couple of quick things. First of all, Anna is in Munich right now. So if you're in Munich, I need you to panic and get over to the Munich Security Conference, where your panic will be detected.
And stopped from entering.
That's right. Hashtag your MSC as a Munich Security Conference to find out more information. She'll be doing a lot of interviews, up to and including maybe, I'm not sure about this, Angela Merkel. So
what?
That's what I heard, but I'm not positive about it. But check out that Twitter handle. She's doing panels and interviews throughout the week in Germany, so that's pretty fun. I also want to tell you about Wolfpack. I am going to the state of Washington on the 22nd of this month, February 22nd. We're going to Olympia, Washington, to the Capitol to try to make Washington the 6th state. I think it is very possible. In fact, this Friday, they're having a committee hearing in the House, and so you guys can participate. Main thing to take away here is, if you're in the state of Washington, go to Washington@wolf-pack.com, and they'll tell you where to show up, when to show up, and how you can make a giant difference. Going to the Capitol is wonderful, and I want you guys there with them on the 15th and with me on the 22nd, but you don't necessarily have to go to the Capitol. You could make calls, you could make emails, from as simple as possible to as much involvement as you want. Remember, when you're there, if we win, it's a wonderful, wonderful feeling because you made that possible. So I'll be going to the second committee hearing, that's in the Senate side, on February 22nd.
Nice.
So come join me, and let's bring our TYT Army, Wolfpack Mountain Army, all there. So Washington at wolf-pack.com. And then finally, I wanted to thank our sponsor, Squarespace here. They help you bring your stories to life, obviously help you set up websites, blogs, and portfolios. For those of you who've been watching the Young Turks for a while, you know that I even built a website using Squarespace, and if I can do it, anybody can. So for 10% off, head over to squarespace.com/TYT or use the promo code TYT and you'll get 10% off. All right, yeah. John, what's next?
Really, super fast, I just want to throw myself under the bus. Can we bring up the Munich image for just 1 second? Yep. Of Anna off at the security conference? So this is sort of just a sad realization, but that picture of her is a better picture of her than there ever has been or ever will be of me. It's really sad when you realize your limitations. Look how photogenic she is.
Yeah.
It's really annoying, honestly.
Yeah, I hear you on that. I do have one last thing to say about that. Go check out John's Instagram and Twitter and anywhere where you can see his pictures, because John looks totally different in pictures than he does in real life or on video. You know what you look like in pictures? I think I might have told you this once in a post game. You look so much more Italian in pictures. You do. No, I think it's funny. Okay. See, look at Luigi over there.
I want to give you an idea. I'm moving too much.
Okay, I'm telling you, go to his Instagram account, and which I would normally never plug.
Luigi.
And
Why
you'll
Luigi?
see.
Why not Mario?
Okay, every picture you're gonna be like, man, that dude looks Italian. Okay.
Okay, here's the issue. The latest picture I have up on my Instagram is me in an Italian restaurant.
See, I told you.
No!
By the way, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure this out. His last name is Iadarola.
Can I say this should totally be for the post? No, I'm gonna save it for the post game. So I want to reveal the table I sat at. Which U.S. politician sat at that table the night before me?
Well, wow.
It's not who you'd expect, and we have an interesting story about them and their family.
Well, you know that old story about Bernie Sanders and me at an Italian restaurant. I'll tell you, if you guys don't know that story, I'll tell that story in the post game too.
Funny.
Free week if you want try out membership, tyt.com/trial.
Yeah.
So then you'll get all the post games, the old school Ben and I are gonna do tomorrow night. Just check out everything, including Postmates.
Yeah.
All right, what's next?
You get to find out how Bernie Sanders orders food. It's pretty funny. Okay, let's jump back in the news. At Donald Trump's El Paso speech last night, one of his devoted fans decided to, in an unprovoked fashion, just attack a BBC reporter, and it was captured live on tape right here.
Americans, Hispanic Americans, and Asian Americans have reached the lowest level in the history of our country.
Okay, so that video was from the point of view of the reporter as he was being attacked, and you see them then chanting in support of both the guy and Trump. His coworker who posted the video on Twitter said, "Just attended my first real Donald Trump rally where my colleague BBC cameraman Ron Skeens was attacked by a Trump supporter. The crowd had been whipped up into a frenzy against the media by Trump and other speakers all night." That probably will not come as much of a surprise to you. The BBC cameraman said the, quote, "very hard shove came from the blind side and the red hat shoved him twice before a blogger wrestled him away. I didn't know what was going on," he says. He was just doing his job filming the event when he was assaulted from behind. And his colleague, Washington correspondent Gary O'Donoghue, called it, quote, "an incredibly violent attack. This is a constant feature of these rallies, a goading of the crowds against the media." He says he's been spat at before as well.
Yes. So it's almost as if you egg people on by telling people that the media is the enemy of the people, that they might actually act upon it. I mean, what do you do to your enemy? Do you sit there and just let him do whatever he wants? No, the whole point of the imagery of the enemy is that you attack your enemy. Like you literally almost can't do anything else with your enemy. I guess you could surrender to your enemy, but 9 out of 10 times you're going to attack your enemy. And so saying that criticism of the media, especially the mainstream media, is out of bounds is unacceptable and nonsense. Of course you can criticize them. You can criticize them from the right, and they have been for decades. We criticize them from the left. But calling them the enemy of the people incites violence. It's obvious. The intent of it is to incite violence. There is almost no other intent because there's 1,000 other ways to criticize the media by using the language, especially if you're the president of the United States, the enemy of the people. Well, whoever you apply that to, you're telling your followers you must attack those people. And so it's incredibly dangerous. I'm surprised it hasn't happened more. Although we find out after this that several other reporters said that this particular gentleman had been pushing them as well. Another BBC reporter said that at a different rally he'd been spat on. And we've had people, of course, aggressively coming up to Jim Acosta at some of these rallies. And so he's a dangerous guy who doesn't believe in our system of government, doesn't believe in freedom of the press, doesn't believe in the Constitution. And this is the natural consequence of it.
Yeah, we could go back through, we just have to, there's these zombie things that just come up every once in a while and you address them and they come back up. So we could go through all these examples of him inciting violence, specifically saying to punch people, and we could go back for the election where one of his big fans was sending pipe bombs to his list of political enemies, and we can go through all that. If you do not accept that he is trying to get people to attack the media at this point, you're simply not going to. You're probably a Trump supporter yourself. It's happening all the time. Hell, go to the tweet that we showed you at the beginning and look at the responses from Trump supporters to that. that, and you get an idea of what they have been trained to believe about the media. Now, as this was going on though, you do also have Donald Trump in the room, and here is how he responded as the incident was happening.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. You all right? Everything okay? Please? Okay, thank you. Thank you. And women have...
Okay, and he goes right back into his talking points.
All right, so a couple of things there. One is Trump's reaction. You guys okay? All right, well, I'm glad he asked, okay, but it's a very low bar. How about you tell the crowd, don't do that? So I have said things against the media, and if I'm in a rally, which I have been, and I say something against the media, somebody attacks the media, I would go, no, don't do that. That's not the point. We do it in a constructive way. We do it through ideas. We do it through politics. I wouldn't go, you okay? You're right. All right, good. All right. And I think maybe even more importantly, did you hear the crowd? They were chanting, let him go, let him go. Like, oh, so what? He assaulted someone, just let him go. If you're a political opponent, they chant, lock him up or lock her up, right? If you're someone who committed a violent assault on a reporter, let him go, let him go. What's the big deal? Guys, and this is what the media still won't do, even though they're now the targets of the attack. You're not getting it. They like violence. And it's not just Trump, it's the Trump voters, it's the Trump supporters. They believe in an authoritarian form of government. They don't believe in freedom of speech and freedom of the press, and they believe in violence.
Yeah.
And so, you can say, well, hey, look, that's just one guy out of the whole crowd. But the crowd chanted, let him go, let him go.
That was not enough for the crowd. They were not happy that it ended there. And think about the two reactions they had. It's bad enough that you see Donald Trump and he's just like, he's doing his weird point. He's even doing his thing like this, which is literally the exact same motion he makes in all of his rallies when he's attacking the media. Not in some sense like, hey, the Washington Post, New York Times, he's saying those people in the media. He did the same thing when talking to the guy, asking if he was okay there. So they start with let him go, then they transition to Trump, 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 Trump. So they got fired up by one of their own attacking a member of the media, and they were reinvigorated for more Trump at that point. You're not supposed to call these people names. You're supposed to be super understanding of them. That was absolutely disgusting.
Yeah,
and he did nothing to stop it from happening again. He could have easily said, you know what? I'm gonna get back to my points I wanted to make in just a second, but here's the thing. If you attack ever a political opponent, member of the media, you are not a follower of mine. We don't have any interest in you being a part of the MAGA movement. We are for political change, we're not for violence. And he chose not to do that. He chose to transition back into whatever BS he was spreading about women after that.
And that's because he's at different rallies over and over, especially during the campaign, would say, attack them, not to the media about hecklers or protesters. He would say, carry them out on a stretcher. Those were the good old days.
Punch him in the face.
Punch him in the face, I'll pay your legal bills. He directly incited violence because that's who he is. He's a fascist at heart. So even at this late juncture, the media does not understand the danger that he poses to the country. If he could, he would end our system of government without blinking an eye. And look, one more thing about that. I wrote an article about this. I would say coincidentally, but it's not really a coincidence. It's because this kind of violence keeps happening over and over again about stochastic terror. And we've got it up on our website, tyt.com. But we'll put the link down below if you're watching this later on YouTube or Facebook. And it's about this phenomenon where if you say, hey, go kill Joe Blow, that is illegal. Okay, that is a specific call to violence and illegal. That's not covered under freedom of speech. Okay. But if you say, hey, generally speaking, these are your enemies, and is somebody gonna do something about it? That is legal. So, but what it does is it unleashes what's called stochastic terror, which is randomized terror, which they could then disavow and say, well, I didn't personally do it, so I'm not legally responsible. I just asked my followers to go commit that violence. And so Trump and a lot of right-wingers have over and over asked their followers to commit violence. And so when random acts of violence pop up to terrorize their opponents, including the media, they go, I didn't do it, haha, technically you can't get me. But it is terrorism nonetheless. I mean, last we heard, Christine Blasey Ford was still switching houses because she had the audacity to talk about what actually did happen to her during the Kavanaugh hearings. And the right wing has terrorized her ever since. The Sandy Hook parents, some of them continue to change houses because Alex Jones and those nut jobs say that they were crisis actors and it's all a lie, and they get threats of violence over and over again. So that terrorism is happening right now in this country. It happens all the time, and we've just quietly accepted it, and that's how fascism creeps up on you. When you slowly accept that one side will do violence and the other side will not counter it. And then eventually people get intimidated and stop speaking out against them.
Yeah. Okay, why don't we turn to another topic raised at that particular rally. Trump weighed in on the Green New Deal that was released just last week by Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and dozens of other politicians, both in the House and in the Senate. And I think you'll be able to quickly tell that he definitely read the entire thing.
They introduced the so-called Green New Deal. It sounds like a high school term paper that got a low mark. It would shut down American energy, which I don't think the people in Texas are going to be happy with that. It would shut down a little thing called air travel. How do you take a train to Europe? You know, they want to take away your car, reduce the value of your home, and put millions of Americans out of work, spend $100 trillion, which, by the way, there's no such thing as $100 trillion. You have to spend $100 trillion.
Okay, so that's the latest from him, but he's been talking about this for a couple of days now. Nothing that he says has any relationship with the actual content of the Green New Deal, but he's tweeted, I think it's very important for the Democrats to press forward with their Green New Deal. It would be great for the so-called carbon footprint. He doesn't think that that actually means anything. He thinks it's like a fake made up term. To permanently eliminate all planes, cars, cows, oil, gas, and the military, even if no other country do the same. Brilliant. If you're confused by that, it's because nothing in the proposal for the Green New Deal calls for any of that. AOC has never proposed any of that. Yeah, there's more. He talks about people needing to take a train to California. He has no idea what is actually going on, but he knows that this is going to wreck the US economy in pursuit of stopping a Chinese hoax.
Remember, he loves conspiracy theories, so he might think carbon's a code word for Bigfoot, and that's what's leaving the footprint. And you know,
carbon very blurry when you take photos of it.
He said there, it sounds like a high school term paper that got a low mark. Now, he would know a thing or two about that. I'm gonna call again for Donald Trump to release his transcripts. I believe he was a failing student at Fordham and at Penn. I would be shocked if he got a grade above a C on any class. Remember, even according to his own allies like Lindsey Graham, he's a one-page kind of guy. I don't know if you know this, in college you have to read past a page. And I think his IQ is so low that it would literally be shocking if he ever got a grade above a C in any context. And so he called for Obama to release his transcripts from Columbia and Harvard because he couldn't believe that a black man could be successful in those colleges. I can't believe an orange man would be this successful, a person this monumentally stupid. So I'm calling for those transcripts to be released. I'm sure any day now. And by the way, if the Democrats are now in charge of oversight, get his transcripts while you're at it. I know the tax returns, etc. But and so you might say, oh, come on, Cenk, that's a little petty. First of all, Trump did it to Obama and he did it for racist reasons. Second of all, no, it goes to show the privilege, the unearned privilege that he had. There's no way he had good enough grades at Fordham to transfer to Penn. He transferred there because of Daddy, who also got him out of Vietnam based on a nonsense letter from Trump, from a doctor that we now know was Not true, okay? So he's never earned a thing in his life. So please don't come at me with a paper with low marks on the Green New Deal. Hilarious, from the dumbest man who's ever served in office in American history. Okay, now let's go on to the substance of the Green New Deal. Kind of. He says it will eliminate a little thing called air travel. It might be that he's jealous because he couldn't do it himself. All he could do was shut down Trump's shuttle. Remember, he had an airline. As usual, abject failure. Total loser. Couldn't run that business like he couldn't run any business. And he had to shut down that piece of air travel. So I guess he thinks probably it's a good thing and he's jealous that they're gonna do more. Now in reality, of course, are they shutting down air travel? No, and this goes beyond Trump. This is a lie that the entire Republican Party is telling, which unfortunately a lot of the media is calling even.
Yep.
I can't tell. No, they said in an ideal world, our railway system would be so great we wouldn't need air travel. They didn't say we're gonna shut down air travel and we're not gonna allow people to take planes. They never said that, they never came within a mile of saying that. That is every Republican in the country lying. But the media can't say that, oh, well, I mean, that wouldn't be neutral. That wouldn't be neutral. I mean, I could criticize Trump, but the rest of the Republican Party, I have to bow down and kiss their ass, even though they're proven liars.
Aren't they banning cows though?
Of course they're not banning cows.
They're banning
And
cows.
almost every Republican in the country is repeating that mythology.
Yeah, the best example is, so first of all, yes, you're 100% right. This morning on the Damage Report, I critiqued a Politico tweet that was just a list of all of the Republican talking points about the Green New Deal. That's all it was. But there was I think it was PolitiFact did a fact check about one of the claims about what was in the Green New Deal, but at the same time, AOC's claim that there were false versions of the Green New Deal floating around. And in this fact check, they repeatedly said AOC is wrong that there are fake versions of the Green New Deal floating around that the Republicans are using to speak out against it. Then they acknowledge in the middle of the article that yes, multiple right-wingers have a fake version where it says something about reusing urine or something like that, a fake version. They say that and then they go back to, she is wrong and lying about there being fake versions of the Green New Deal floating around. It's like this long on the screen, that's all it is. And they go back and forth with they're just doublethink, it's just natural at this point.
If you are neutral to the truth and lies, that means you are not objective. You are not objective. What you're doing is political correctness to try to make Republicans sound smarter and more honest than they actually are. In reality, they're idiots who think you could ban cows and then spread that mythology, and they lie about it on purpose over and over again, and you aid and abet their lies when you call it even between their clear fabrications and a legitimate policy proposal on the side of the Democrats, Ocasio-Cortez, Ed Markey, etc. Yeah. So please stop lying on behalf of Republicans. It's not too much to ask for.
And I just want to briefly give you AOC's response to these lies put out by Donald Trump. She said, yes, a man who can't even read briefings written in full sentences is providing literary criticism of a House resolution. Quote, reading the intelligence book is not Trump's preferred style of learning, according to a person with knowledge of the situation, as reported by the Washington Post. And by the way, I noted this morning as well. I don't think that it's by chance that he didn't just say it's poorly written. He said it's like a term paper you would do in high school, because they really think that just insulting her age is going to get them out of this. That if you just call her young, then people won't pay any attention to her ideas.
Well, actually, for right-wingers, that is unfortunately true. And you add woman, so a young woman, they're like, a young woman, what would she know? Look, the guy you support might or might not have 3 IQ points. And you have the audacity to talk about other people's intelligence based on artificial traits like age and gender. But that is the Republican Party. They classify people based on who they are, not the merits of their ideas. Which party that believes in the merit of ideas would have picked Donald Trump? So, ladies and gentlemen, I rest my case.
Why don't we take our second break?
Yes, now a lot more to come up here because Trump versus Ilhan Omar is another giant one. I was not on the show yesterday, so I did not get the vent about the total nonsense attack against Ilhan Omar. It drives me crazy. And then we've got the stories in the second hour that are about the insect apocalypse, and that's actually real. And I'm sure that Trump will be go, yeah, what do you mean? I still see some insects.
Yeah.
And what would be wrong with getting rid of spiders? I don't like spiders. Anyway, we'll talk about that when we come back.